guidance. We were actually going to have her on before this all happened, but now I think it's kind of worked out even better because we can actually discuss this and see what's going on. So you guys have been begging to have her back on, so I am just so honored that she agreed to do it again. So we had the one and only Miss Tanaath with us. So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. Currently, well, we're under soft lockdown where I am still, but they're starting to release restrictions. We actually went out for dinner the other night. That was quite nice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good. It's pretty rare to do right now, yeah. So obviously I think we need to kind of address kind of the most important thing going on right now. So the COVID-19, it's a very scary thing. There's tons of conspiracies about it, different thoughts about it. What are your thoughts and feelings on this?
Oh boy, so this is tricky because there are some legal restrictions in what people can and can't say. Otherwise, They tend to get shut down very hard. I should begin by saying I am not a medical professional. I am not privy to any specific special information from terrestrial sources regarding this matter. My upstairs information, again, I don't know how confident I am in it. I will say that there appear to be a number of agendas going on regarding this particular incident, some of which are maybe less friendly to human interests than others. I will say that right now signs point to this being more than it looks, but not nearly as dangerous as people first thought. And I think the statistics are bearing that out, especially when you look at the statistics of places like, Sweden and places like that, where it hasn't been too bad, or even my own country of Canada. And that definitely we had an overabundance of caution. Right. And this might have been a good idea in some respects, but in other respects, we're starting to reach the point where if we don't start getting people back to work, there may not be enough food and necessities of life to go around very, very shortly. So we do have to balance things like the safety of our elderly and vulnerable people with the necessity to get food and clothing and shelter to every human being. I will say that you should keep a very skeptical eye when you're looking at the claims being made, because there are a number of agendas that seem to want to use this to steer humanity towards a much more dystopian future. And we should push back on that kind of thing at all costs. Never give up your freedoms for liberty or for safety, right? Never give up your liberty for, but this is safer for everyone. No, don't do it. Bad idea.
Yeah. No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because I agree there is, and that's why it's so scary, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring, you know.
Yeah, and I think, before we knew the statistics, before we knew what the possibilities were, an extreme response is not out of line. But now that we know, the reaction hasn't caught up with the data. Like, the science is in. This is not a particularly virulent or deadly or bad strain of anything. We don't necessarily need to keep things locked down now that we know. Sweden took a model where they had their vulnerable people self-quarantine. As a result, they haven't seen the same shutdowns in their economic activity. And economics is a lot more than just a bunch of people sitting around in a CEO's boardroom.
Right.
And it's a lot more than the stock market. Economics is the sum of every human activity that produces something. And I don't know about you, but I like to eat. I like to wear clothes in the winter. It gets really cold where I am.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't go without a car, or if you can, you need a bus. And buses get made by someone. Cars get made by someone.
Right.
The food in the grocery store doesn't just appear there every morning. It's shipped on trucks, which are driven by people, processed in plants by people, raised by people doing stuff. If we shut that down, everything stops. Well, have fun. You're not going to be able to afford it. Those of you who are in a city and not attached to farms like I am, well, you're going to have a lot harder time than the people who are living in the rural areas. And quite frankly, the people living in the rural areas are not likely to want to help people in cities because there is a very big political divide and cultural divide between rural and urban in North America right now.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's really just people, and we need to love each other and take care of each other. And honestly, I wish this would stop the divide so much. It seems to be actually making it worse, which is kind of crazy. But I think if we look at it in opposite ways and really just take care of each other, I think that's the only way we're really going to be able to get through this.
Well, it does seem to be alerting people, regular people, to the fact that what's been going on behind the scenes is not as benign as everybody sort of assumed, right?
Right.
Like it's showing really that the emperor has no clothes.
Right.
I tend to not view mainstream traditional media sources except here and there because, yeah, the information I have suggests that most of them are not very accurate or trustworthy. But for somebody who spent their entire life relying on those news sources to all of a sudden discover, oh my God, these are not truthful, they're not trustworthy, and in some cases they're just making up stuff out of whole cloth, it's a bit of a shock for people. People have to come out of it, right?
Right.
And I can tell you know, you see the David Icke and Alex Jones types who sit there screaming till they're red in the face about, you know, how the frogs are gay or whatever.
Right.
And it doesn't really help. But when you start to see that, oh my God, some of the things these people are talking about, maybe not the weird crap, but the more normalized crap about, you know, there being hidden interests behind the scenes who are organizing things, it starts to look really a lot more real to normal people.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all dealing with this virus, so it's kind of interesting to see how the world is reacting.
And one thing that really stood out to me is that everyone in Western-type society has been so stressed out, so disconnected from family in the home. It's always, you know, go, 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 work comes first, everything like that. And it's almost like as soon as these shutdown orders were called, we all kind of collectively breathed a sigh of relief. We started to rediscover ourselves and each other and actually just focus on just being and existing for a little while. And I think that has been very good for us psychologically.
Yeah.
I think we've needed that.
Oh, I agree, because you're right. I mean, I think you do your values and everything like that. And I think that's very important.
I'm hoping that some positive changes will come out of this.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we will see that our model was really not sufficient and it was toxic. And I'm hoping that because of that, we will decide collectively as a society that, okay, no, we need to roll this back, right? It can't all be stock prices and 60-hour work weeks.
Right. Still here, we just aren't really completely aware of them.
Yeah, well, Admiral Byrd, if you've ever heard of Operation High Jump, so that was when Admiral Byrd took a fleet to Antarctica to confront the Nazis. The fact of that they were confronting Nazis wasn't exactly published to the American public or anyone else. This was in the middle of the Cold War. People weren't exactly talking about stuff like that openly. He took a force down to Antarctica, and he came back with his tail between his legs because they had anti-gravity tech and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, what came out of that is basically the Nazi forces agreed to leave North America alone, and that's when Antarctica got coded as an international area where nobody was allowed to own it, right? It's held in common to everyone. And that's largely why, because it's full of Nazis. But not just Nazis, there's other groups there. Heck, we've got a base in Antarctica.
Now, I entrance to the inside of the world. I mean, there's just theories after theory after theory. So what is going on out there?
Well, from what I can confirm, there are a number of factions with a number of bases there. there is an entryway to some of the tunnel system. The Earth isn't hollow like a tennis ball, but there is a complex tunnel system, an extensive tunnel system below the surface. And yeah, you can access it at either of the polar regions. There's an exit point or an entrance point to those tunnel systems, and you can get in. And those are heavily contested and guarded, shall we say. You probably can't walk with your sled and just go in there. Both the North Pole and Antarctica are extremely hostile environments out of those entryway points. So the average person attempting to get there is going to have a rough time. Like, it is a hard journey. I would 100% die. That is tough, right? The average person isn't up to that journey.
Right. Different beliefs and stuff. So how are they all living up there at the same time and not destroying everything and killing each other?
It's almost like there's kind of like an entente, if you're familiar with the term, where everybody there just sort of mutually agrees to leave everyone else alone, because otherwise, the moment you step up to cause trouble for somebody, you're kind of open to it yourself, right?
Right.
So it becomes kind of a live and let live. And people will basically ask me, like, why don't we just fucking, pardon the language, why don't we just cowboy our way through stuff? Why don't we just get heavy-handed and shut everyone down? And that's because, well, there's a bit of a balance of power. And the moment you start cowboying, everybody else is like, nope, they're cowboys, get rid of them.
Yeah. Interesting.
It is not the Wild West. It is not without its organization and hidden rules, right?
Right.
You can't just walk in and do what you want. Other people will fight back.
Right. No, very interesting.
And anybody who's going in to mess up the balance is going to get everyone on them.
That's true. No, I get.
And this whole notion of a shift or ascension, that was the third thing I was sort of pushed inside to look into. Now, I still don't know what I think about the ascension stuff.
Yeah.
Because it seems that the claims of the Andromeda Council, which we originally took as trustworthy, it seems that they're, 2014 passed without anything significant happening. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I kind of, because